Welcome back to the Marine Corps Movie Minute, where we discuss movies of the Marine Corps 1 minute at a time. I'm Brian, and I'm alone. And we stopped doing movies of the Marine Corps at least 1 minute at a time when we finished Heartbreak Ridge, which was only just yesterday. But today's a new day, and today's also the Marine Corps birthday. Happy 245th birthday, Marines. What better way to celebrate a birthday than with presents? The only thing we can do here at the Marine Corps Movie Minute is offer you bonus content. So what that's going to look like this time is an unedited version of the second interview we did with Pete Koch. So we hope everybody enjoys the complete conversation we had with Pete Koch on the second go around of the Marine Corps Movie Minute. Welcome everybody back to the Marine Corps Movie Minute. This is Billy and Perry, and today we got a special guest returning. We got Swede himself, Pete Koch.
Hey, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to speak with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always welcome to come in and visit with us.
All right, you got it.
Coming back, second time, he's officially reached friend of the show status. So
yeah.
thanks so much, Pete. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We've reached minute 86. This is basically the minute full of the pit fight in the water between First Platoon and Recon Platoon. And of course, you're featured very heavily throughout that minute. And so we had a couple of little good gags that you see here, especially with you and the rest of the Marines and I guess real life Marines, I assume, were part of this.
Yes, indeed.
So I think I've heard you say in the past, maybe on a separate interview, like, oh, actually, you said it to us too. This was like a heat wave during this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was really hot. It was like San Diego was kind of experiencing like a record heat during this time. So when we got around to this scene, had a chance to get in that water for a minute. It was it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I bet. Now, was there something? Did they have to ship water in for this because of the heat wave or whatever? Like it was drying out, or
Yeah, it was like a heat wave and a drought, and yeah, they had massive water trucks come in. By the time us actors got to the location, they were still putting water in. I'm sure that was something they had been doing all day because I think we started about midday. It was real hot, and yeah, so that mud pit was fortified water that they tanked in.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I have to imagine this is a fairly fun scene to film. Do you recall, was this kind of staged in any way, or was this kind of like get out there and start throwing each other around, have some fun with it?
It was staged, certainly, but there was a lot of impromptu. So the fight coordinator and Clint were very much prepared and had a vision of how that would go, and then they're communicating carefully with the first assistant director. I always tell people what the job of the first AD is to instruct and direct and coach everybody except the actors where the camera's like right on one or two people or whatever that scene is, but everything sort of around it is the responsibility of the first AD. And when you've got a big scene here with, I don't know, 50, 70 people, and that's like, I guess about 10, 12 actors and then 50 Marines that served as, and they were paid. They were our background extras, but they were the real deal. So that was great. And they're also very, very helpful for any of us actors that had questions along the way. So it was this very coordinated effort between all those parties, the stunt coordinator Clint, who's directing the scene, of course, and then the actors, and they just told us where they wanted to get in a position. And then there were other times, and Clint's got a bullhorn, because once they say action, you guys just start having at it. Let's get these battles going in the water. And then when they might run the camera for a minute or two, and it's just all hell breaking loose, but then he would get on the megaphone and say, "Hey, that's a cut. Let's shut it down." And then he would give us more instruction. And then as the fight scene moves on, the contestants, are eliminated. They come out of the water until there's down it's to two guys. And so there was a method there, and we just worked on it for hours. just to get that what we call coverage enough, shoot enough film so that Clint felt like he could edit together something that looked cool.
Well, no, did they have like a lot of costume changes? Like when you get in and out of the water, or did they just?
Yeah, it's a really good question, right? Because you go in dry and then you get wet, and you're like, "Oh, what if we didn't?" That's why it's so important to. So that to answer your question, no, the short answer is no, and
Okay.
we knew that going in. I mean, and they made it clear, and that we didn't have any backup wardrobe stuff there, so it needed to be shot in order
Ah, okay.
of that. Yeah, because it was a big deal. You make a good point because once we got into the water, it was on. I mean, you couldn't come out and shoot anything, really make sense of anything because you were going to be wet. Yeah, it's a good point. So it was shot in order.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, they did a good job of editing this together because it's actually it makes a lot of sense. You can follow the action. I picked this minute in particular partly because it's a fun scene.
Yeah.
You feature prominently in it because like you could see at one point you throw like 4 or 5 guys off of you. You're high fiving
Hmm.
Mike Gomez who plays Keones,
Yeah.
which I had a question about that before I go any further. So that little high five between you guys, I assume that was something that was now set up. I think you kind of answered my question. It seems like a little bit of business that might have been, pre-stage, maybe shout because obviously you
Yeah.
throwing the guys off, and then that was like the follow up, the nice high five between you two.
Yeah, I think that was Mike's idea. He says, "Hey, at this point, we seem to be, fighting in right proximity. We ended up next to each other, and during one of the breaks in the action, he says, maybe." And this is really the fun of acting, because actors are, sort of always looking for what we call business, like something to do with your hands, something to do besides put your hands in your pocket or in
Yeah.
such a scene like this. I mean, like Brad Pitt famously is eating food in a lot of movies that he's in, but he's
Yeah.
not the only actor that does that. It gives you something to do, and the more you have something to do that's realistic, the easier it is to be authentic. Not that we were in this water looking for any kind of great authentic acting moments, but it's always nice to have some business to do that connects actors in a meaningful way. So the camaraderie of he and I giving each other a high five was kind of cool. I think that was Mike's idea.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a great little bit because that stood out to me, and then it made me focus on the minute some more. And like you said, I could see that you guys were in close proximity, and there was a little shot, a little before that, where it looked like you guys were working together and kind of fell over and were throwing some guys.
A little teamwork.
Yeah, it was a neat payoff to not only see like you throw like 5 guys off of you, so it's like that's like a Hulk moment. It's like really cool, but then also the fact that you guys already had a minute of working together and like, oh, like, yay, that was awesome, high five. Because I noticed actually going back throughout the movie, there was minute 55 when you guys were in Combat Town, when Lieutenant Ring was leading recon into Combat Town and Gunny started shooting at everybody. You and Mike Gomez took cover at the same time. And I was like, is this a little thing where they kind of setting up the big guy and the little guy kind of palling around, or was that just something with between actors? And it's kind of neat to know that you guys just kind of improv that in the heat of the
Yeah,
moment. Yeah.
yeah, no, it was that's interesting that you noticed that, but that we sort of characters connected in a couple of scenes, but that's just the way it worked out. Yeah.
Just overall, I think this is a funny minute between, especially like I knowing that we were asking you to come back on. Paid special attention. Like when you first get in the water, you could tell like you look really eager and excited to get. Yeah, we're gonna get into it. yeah, yeah.
You went
And
right to the deep end too, or the farthest in from the bank.
And of course, the moment where you're throwing the guys off, I brought it up a few times. The high five is a great moment, but then you're doing almost like a Stooges, like Mo with Curly and Larry, grabbing choking the guys out, but in a headlock and walking 2 guys out at once, which is a pretty funny moment. And then running back in, all excited to get another two. And I believe somebody suplexes you backwards, which was kind of. Was that another thing? Do you recall? Was that set up, or was that just something that kind of just happened?
That was set up. That was part of the stunt coordinator, and he said, "Let's." His idea was perfect. He says, "Let's make sure that this isn't just a cakewalk for Swede. Let's give him somebody the guy they chose was one of our background Marines, and gosh, I'm at a loss for his name right now. But he also he was about the biggest guy that as part of that group that was with us every day, as cast as one of the regular background guys, and he was also this unit's medic.
Oh, okay.
I think he was in the Navy. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
you would have
Yep.
been a Navy corpsman. Yep.
Yeah, he was a Navy corpsman, right? One of these super trained up guys he was a corpsman, and he had trained with special operators. He was an interesting guy, very, very, also very, very fit. And yeah, that was the guy they said, "Come on over here and see if you can get Pete off the ground."
That's a cool little thing, and I did notice that when you first go in that, just the whole everybody, there are a few big guys, maybe not as muscular or maybe not as tall, but there's not everybody's average size. There's some big guys, so it makes sense they got somebody that could kind of take it to you, but they gave you a little props. It took like 4 guys to get you out.
Yeah.
Again, I like that little bit because where this ends up going, it's down to Stitch Jones.
Right.
In order to not make it be the Swede show that you would
Yeah.
assume, they had to justify you getting out. And actually I got the minute now, I'm kind of watching as we're talking, and you like you attack a guy, but you also kind of stumble, and then that's when the guy suplexes you, and then they do you the service of at least giving you 4 guys to carry you out. Which is always funny too, because I like the look on your face is pretty funny. Like, I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, and it's just funny. Yeah, it's a great scene. Right after or right before that, you could see. I'm not sure where this was filmed in the minute, but you could tell it's definitely an extra. It's definitely a real Marine, and he's just having the time of his life. He's got the biggest smile on his face.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine it was a lot of fun to kind of do this, even if it was a long day, and I assume physically demanding though.
Indeed, it was, but it was also a scene that I think all the actors were looking forward to. That we had that on our schedule, and I was really interested to see what this mud pit really looked like. Because and how this scene would play out, and it was great. I think every guy was totally into it. I think we probably spent 6 or 8 hours shooting it, which is like hard to believe, but everything in the film business takes longer, than you
Yeah.
think it will. But everyone was really excited to shoot the scene, and Clint was all about it. And I always marvel at him because, he didn't have much to do in that scene until the very end, but he was directing, so he was extremely busy, that day, and he I think he made the scene look as cool as it could have been.
Really authentic because Perry and I, when we both were stationed in Pensacola, Florida for a while, and one of the things we did during our training unit for PT is we do something like this without the water. We call it like knockdown drag out or something like that.
Yeah.
You
Mm,
get out a football field and you basically split the platoon, the teams in half, and anything it took to get the other team across the center field, let's say,
mhm,
you did it. And we did also something called trash ball, which was any ball we had, 2 trash cans, put them in at the end of the goalpost there. Anything you can to score, and anything you can to keep them from getting in. And it got very physical, but it was very fun.
Yeah.
And
mhm.
it reminds me of this scene. So I do wonder what came first, the chicken or the egg. Like
Yeah.
did somebody watch this movie and go, hey, this sounds like fun for PT? And not everybody has a Kentuckian water pits for us to do it, but we make it work.
Yeah, we used to do football wrestling with football, kind of similar to that, where you
Yeah,
had you had to try, and it got pretty I won't say
in,
violent, but it got
intense.
pretty yeah, yeah, it's fun stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
you try to dislodge or remove the football from the other guy.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
Yeah, sure.
Off those those events where you pop a ball loose and you kind of scramble for it, then it's like, well, okay, now you got it. How can you keep it?
yeah, yeah. Kill the man with the ball type thing.
Yeah.
That's legit football drills. We stripping the ball out is something that's worked on in practice every day. Those turnovers are so important. So yeah, it's good fun. It makes sense
Yep.
that you can incorporate that into some military training. I like it.
Yeah, it gets you physical. It gets you, not afraid to take a hit.
Yeah.
Not everybody's taking a hit. You're going to doing this stuff. So actually, you brought up football, and actually made me think of something, both in this scene and also the scene later. I mean, this is getting way later into the actual ending of the movie when you guys are fighting in Grenada. There's a couple times you take some you do some I'm up, you see me, I'm down kind of dives with you had the M60. Like, were you ever worried about getting injured during filming this because you had to go to training camp here shortly after filming? Was that ever on your mind, or was
Well,
it just like no?
I wasn't concerned that anything. I take it back. I mean, I was very alert, sort of conscious to the fact that something like rolling my ankle or something in those scenes that we were shooting in Vieques, that in Puerto Rico, that were doubling as Grenada.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we were in a real, sort of a jungle. It was no doubt. And then you got this weapon, and let's face it, like my level of, comfort in the heat running with this weapon look, it's not loaded, it's got a bunch of blanks on it, but you still got the weight of it. And
Hmm.
you want to be, every day I felt a bit more comfortable moving around with that weapon. But I'm a long shot. I never got to the point where I could just only imagine that it just takes quite a bit of time to get really familiarized and comfortable and feeling confident that you can run and move and do things with your weapon and keep yourself and everybody around you safe.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of training.
Consideration, right?
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, and I because us actors, we were just getting on the fly training. So yeah, I was definitely aware of that. I mean, for that matter, you can easily. There was a scene where I had to run, and they asked me to kind of do a like a Pete Rose head first slide with the
yeah,
gun. I'm like, what this? And my first concern was, yeah, and actually, I did this 4 or 5 times, but my concern was big heavy gun made out of metal, sharp edges, and your face, your hands, your arm, and there's anything can go wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was acutely aware of that.
Yeah, and I know what scene you're talking about, and for what made it on the screen on film, you don't hesitate, you don't hold back, you hit that ground hard. I mean, you take that dive, and it looks good.
Oh, thanks.
That weapon hitting the ground the wrong way and bouncing back up, or your face hitting off of it,
Yeah.
that could have been
Yeah,
that could have hurt.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, definitely was. You really start to think,
Yeah,
one.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
the
worked out.
M16s are much lighter platform than that M60.
Is that M60 still in use?
no,
None anymore. No, they replaced it with a weapon called the 240 Golf, which it looks almost identical, but I think it's from
it's
what I understand, it's a little lighter.
I think it's a little smaller too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we got to practice with. It
Yeah.
was same idea. I think it's a little bit smaller. I think it's definitely lighter, but yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Okay, and it's improved.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Even the 240 Golf was plenty heavy.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just make a comment. You mentioned about Clint Eastwood putting in a hard day's work and not really having a lot to do until he gets in the pit with Major Powers, which is obviously jumping ahead a little bit, but I noticed there's just one shot at the end when he beats Major Powers and drags him out, and Chuzu holds his arms up and everybody's cheering. To me, it looked like an authentic moment for Clint Eastwood, not as Tom Highway, but as Clint Eastwood. It looked like it was kind of like, hey, this was cool. We got the job done. We got the shot. I mean, this is something I could be reading into it, but it just seemed like after a long day of a physical shoot where like I said, it did look like it's fun. It seemed like everybody was kind of cheering him on, Clint Eastwood. Like it seemed like a genuine moment that was captured on film. I could be wrong. It just was something that stood out as kind of neat.
No, your instincts are exactly right. And by that point, we had been filming together as a group for at least 2 or 3 weeks, and everybody was really 100% excited about making this film. And personally, to a man, I think I could speak to these actors I worked with, that to a man, everybody was just truly enjoying the experience of working with Clint. It was very easy to conjure up that emotion of happiness and sort of gratitude and relief, that he won the fight. And and the yeah, it doesn't it just like anything else in this world, when you've got a boss that you like, it makes life a much nicer.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
it had to be cool too. I mean, you were there for filming a Clint Eastwood fight scene. Like, how legendary is that?
I know, so crazy. I know. It's clever, right? And you think about it now, that there's a bunch of fights in it. Clint's got his moments to shine. It's great. It's perfect.
Yeah. Well, Perry and I have been kind of going through recently, and I mean, we've hit a lot of the talky scenes. We're always just like, are we going to have a hard time finding something to talk about in these, more two people in a room talking, maybe sometimes three people in a room. And we found that these are some of the more fascinating scenes, like scenes between Clint Eastwood and Aggie, where they're just husband or ex-husband and ex-wife kind of getting some stuff off their chest. It's
Yeah.
it's I mean, she did a great job, first off. We've given her a lot of credit, Marsha Mason, for
Yeah.
just how she can go from snarky to angry to, hurt to just, she's great. She's really good in this movie.
Yeah,
But even stuff with like Clint Eastwood and Arlen Dean Snardier, I hope I said it right, who plays Chuzu. Well, two old buddies who've been through a lot together, bonded in blood, just the way they talk to each other. We've had a lot of fun discussing this. So
yeah,
it's such a neat movie. I've made no bones about my love for Clint Eastwood, so I find a lot to take out of the movie, and it's neat to kind of even look at these scenes isolated that you maybe wouldn't focus on because it's an action movie and it's a comedy. But there's some really cool moments of just two actors working together and doing their thing, and it's great.
Yes, and that's an interesting observation because the movie, yeah, it is. It's a comedy at points, and it's got very broad comedic scenes. I think a lot of the stuff with Stitch Jones is pretty over the top, funny, and then there's this love story it's really a love story. I mean, arguably you could say, yeah, that's a love story that's got a bunch of knucklehead Marines running around that Clint, kind of gets squared away.
yeah,
He's tasked with getting these guys in shape, but then the movie sort of drifts back to, hey, listen, the oldest story is, men trying to understand women. Clint really conveys that he cares deeply about this woman, and it gets complicated because she's got a boyfriend now, maybe, you know,
Right.
maybe,
right?
yeah,
Roy,
yeah.
right? Bo Swenson. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. There's a lot going on in that script. I think it's excellent script.
Yeah, because we gave now we don't know how true this was, but we gave props to this movie, being that this is the mid '80s when it was filmed, and they took a time out of this movie, this action movie, to put the wife or the spouse's perspective into the film of what it's like when their husband goes off to war.
Yeah.
Specifically when Aggie was kind of unloading on Tom about, you weren't there, I didn't know where you were, what you were, where you were, what you were doing, all that good stuff, and it just ate away at her, and of course we kind of speculated that Clint Eastwood's character, never even dawned on him that that was an issue, that she had
Yeah.
probably been holding in. But the fact that, Clint Eastwood took the time out of this action movie to put something in there to, even back then, to be like, yeah, this war sucks and it affects people in different ways. And here's
Mm,
another side of it. And And I think that also helped. We were saying like that he helps to it showed that he didn't see that, but he's now starting to understand, and that's where they start making a reconciliation a little bit. I think because they get this off their chest, something that probably been brewing for a while. So I just think it's neat that it can jump around to these different genres depending on the scene, and us doing this podcast, we always find something to talk about.
Yeah.
Because it's so dense. Even we've even joked, we're like, oh, this is a talking minute. So we'll just do this one alone and get through it, and then we end up finding like this is a lot to get through. It's great, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah. Still part of the pit fight. I think this minute. I'll just throw it out there. I think it's minute 89. There's a pretty funny scene with you, Pete, where it's when Gunny's basically winning. He's dragging Major Powers out, and you're just cheering him on, and you're like punching the air, and you throw your hands up in the air. And I just thought that was a real funny, like like yeah, just really getting into it.
Well, I was just trying to bring some energy to it. That's a scene. Boy, at that point in the day, we had a lot of tired actors, me included, and it was, you know, I, it was I was just trying to give it everything I had, and there was a lot of the kind of shaky camera, handheld camera stuff going on there, and just trying to figure out my position in relationship to where the camera is. Like that expression, if you can't see the camera, it can't see you, but you can't look at the camera, so you got to feel it, as we say, and that's up to the actor to do that, because you could be doing some great stuff, and if you're just not, clued into your position versus the camera can't see you, and that's unusable footage. That's a big waste of everybody's, energy. We're all trying to contribute, to making something good. So the camera's got to see you. So this is what I was trying to do.
Yeah, well, it's front and center, right? Right there on the screen, and it's a good little. I always call it little bits of business too. I like it. It's everybody's got their own little personality and character in the background, even though it's not really. It's more about Clint Eastwood winning the fight, and yet
Mhm.
everybody's celebrating in their own way. Do you have any memories about? Because there's a couple funny little bits post fight where you guys sing "Bionic Marine" about. I mean, it's my understanding that Mario Van Peebles came up with the lyrics for that, and it's kind of
Yeah.
funny watching everybody do this kind of like barbershop quartet version of a song sung about Clint Eastwood's character, and of course you got a little you put the exclamation point on the song, and it's pretty funny. Do you have any memories of like that scene in particular, or how that kind of went down?
I just know that was impromptu, and you're right. Mario says one day, he says, "Man, I wrote this song. I think I talked to Clint about it. I think we're gonna film it, man. Maybe to make the movie." And I was like, Mario is just such an impressive character because he was just very thoughtful, very engaged. I mean, I learned so much because I was so new to the business, and he, even though I don't know, he's maybe 4 years older than me or something, he's was infinitely more experienced, and he's just a truly creative person. And I remember just coming away every day thinking, and he wasn't the only one. I mean, there really were some really creative young actors. Half of those guys were from, like Mario. I think, I don't know where Mario was living at the time, but he's a New York guy. And those guys that do theater, I think they definitely come out with a different sort of wiring in their heads and ability to, really get creative. Total admiration for that. So I was just soaking all that in, and there's also the confidence that goes with it. Like, hey, Clint, I wrote a song.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Like,
put it
all
put it
right,
in your movie.
right? Just like that. So, but it worked, and I mean, yes, I had forgotten about that. Actors at the highest level, tell us the people, the great majority of the acting work, in my judgment, that you see on TV and film is the actor, auditioned for that job, just for that job. Like I'm talking about all of the small roles we call co-stars and guest stars.
Right.
And that's a person that might show up and have a line, or the plumber knocks on the door and says, yeah, I'm here to fix the sink. And then the star of the show says, you go around the back and you're done. You said, I'm here to fix the sink. That's your line, right? And we call that a co-star. That's a line. But, 400 people auditioned for that. You're not paid to do anything fancy to do that. You're made to look the part, hit the mark, and deliver the line. That's it. And they don't want more than that for that. When you get to the lead role, when you get to the stuff that Matthew McConaughey does at his level, or Josh Brolin's one of my favorite actors. He brings unique presence every time he does something. He's paid to do that. He's paid to not deliver the line. He's paid to bring something special, something unique, something maybe the director and the writer never thought of, to have that level of creativity. Benicio del Toro, who I work with for all these years, many years, I saw him this morning. I'm his personal trainer. And we've talked about this. The lines are simply moving him from point A to point B, and he uses them as guidelines. What's he doing? He's telling a story. He's telling a story. The guy that says, I'm here to fix the sink, he's part of the story that he basically just moves it along somehow. But the lead characters, when you watch a movie and you're just really following that lead character through, what Clint does in all the movies that he stars in, is he takes you through that journey. And not too long ago, I watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and it's such an amazing film because Eli Wallach is so good in this movie, and Clint has never been. He's so good in this movie. Oh, I'm forgetting the third guy's name.
Cle I always say Cleef.
Oh,
It's
Lee Van
Lee
Cleef.
Van Cleef. Yeah,
Yeah.
Good call.
yeah.
And he's outstanding. And they're very, very distinct characters, so completely different from one another. And they have all this interaction, yet they have their own moments. And they're very clearly telling three separate stories. That's a product of good writing, but that's a product of each one of those actors did a unique and special job of the characterization, all that they wanted that character to embody, which were three very different personalities. And the enjoyment of watching that movie is to go through that journey of what they're trying to do. I don't know. That's just sort of my take about trying to find some of the acting, the process, a little bit that I know about it.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. It's not just the lines, they're moving the story along. It's what that character or what that actor does with those lines. Yeah, Sicario is an incredible movie, and I don't know that anybody, but
Benicio del Toro.
yeah, but I'm just thinking of all the people that were in that movie. But Josh Brolin was incredible in it. Benicio del Toro was incredible in it. But I can't think of anybody else doing those roles for the exact reason that you said, is that they bring something special to it because it's a movie. Yeah, it's a great movie or series of movies, 2 movies so far. But there's some scenes that are really hard to watch, and I'm just like, man, I don't know if I could see anybody else, doing some of what happens in this movie if it wasn't for the quality of actor. And Benicio del
Uh,
Toro's, he's great.
yeah, yeah, no, and I know the amount of work he puts into the thought process, the training, the preparation that goes into each time he takes on a role. So it's been fun for me to learn from him and get to know him and him share some of his process, which is generally very private to actors. Although some come out and just talk about it on shows or interviews, but most are pretty private, and sort of rightfully so. It's something.
Yeah, it's the secret sauce.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. I mean, everybody, you can Google and find out where and who Benicio trained with, and that was hugely formative. He trained with Stella Adler, who died many years ago when she was an older woman in her 80s. Stella Adler's father was a famous acting coach, and Stella was an actor of some renown and was around right about the same time. And she worked with and gets a lot of credit for the training of Marlon Brando.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really heavy, heavy history. So Stella Adler is one of the all time greats, and she came out of this family that was producing some of the great actors and their training, their methodologies for training. And Benicio had a chance to study with her for, I think, about a year and a half when she was in her 80s. And he says, that was it. Changed my life. I got this amazing experience and these tools that I could take with me. So you take all that and then you go, but then there's just talent. Because I said, of all the people that you studied with Stella Adler, who else made it? like to the point where you might even have seen him in a movie ever. And he said, I mean, maybe one other actor. He said and that's the reality of it. It all gets, even with a lot of good training, certainly helpful, very helpful, but it's so competitive, such a competitive business.
Oh, I imagine.
Difficult to separate yourself from the pack.
Definitely believe that. Because if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's minute 92. Moses Gunn comes in, Webster trying to get everybody to rat out. And there's a funny little bit with you, Pete, where you come out of the other side of I guess the head.
Came out of nowhere, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because in one of the scenes you leave because you're like, I don't want any part of this. But then when they start telling him, he's trying to threaten everybody, you just come right up from behind him. And it's such a funny moment because it's kind of what I was kind of joking or when I was watching it, thinking of like, this is probably how they thought it was going to go with Clint Eastwood or Gunny Highway when we first meet you in the film. And it didn't. But Webster was much more intimidated. And it's just funny because you don't say anything. I think Rodney Hill puts his hand on you, kind of almost like holding you back, and he's just like, I guess I'll go now. And he didn't say anything, but it's just a funny little bit of you just showing up and your presence being there just is intimidating, and of course it gives Stitch and the rest of the crew to that little bit of extra backbone to just tell them to don't go away, mad, just go away.
Go away.
Which to this day, because of that line, whenever I say like don't go away, mad, just go away. I always have to put a little growl and gravel into it, like this is a quotable movie for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. But that scene was with Moses Gunn, God rest his soul, who's such a wonderful man. I almost wished he had more to do in that movie because he was such a great actor and he was just so pleasant to be around. We were staging that scene, getting ready to shoot it. Clint's like, "All right, Moses, you're gonna stand here." Pete, let's see, I want to shoot it here, but not much room here, huh? And just go stand over there. Just go right over there. But I was like, I could only get like 2 feet away from Moses because I was up against the wall. You couldn't really. It was just a weird spot. I don't know why they chose this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I said to Moses, "Isn't this kind of weird? I'm so close to you." He just laughed and goes, "Oh, it's okay. This will be fine."
Yeah, it worked out fine on screen, but you can. Yeah, it is like it's like in the doorway. Everybody just kind of standing
Yeah.
there.
What are you doing in the doorway like this?
Yeah. And yeah, he's great in this movie. I mean, just really everybody does their job well in this film. There's really nobody that I would stand out and go, they probably could have recast this actor or this actress. Like everybody's pretty solid in this movie. And he's great. Like he does a lot with what he gets. The character he plays is kind of a kiss ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moses Gunn's a cool dude. I've seen him in other things.
Yeah.
But he's just so good of this. Like there's a scene it's actually before the pit when they're getting the briefing. I think it's back in like minute 85, and they're getting the briefing from Major Powers about what they're going to do, what the objective is for this exercise. And you can see you and the rest of the recon Marines sitting in the background. At one point, Moses Gunn, or Staff Sergeant Webster says, "Oh, Major Powers, I'd be honored if you led our platoon." And it's such a like a teacher you forgot to assign his homework on a Friday type moment. But he plays that character so well. Like it's so good.
Agreed. Really, really well, and had everybody understanding that his role in this movie was the thankless one,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't going to go his way. So
Right.
somebody's got to take that too.
Yeah, there's a scene towards the end. We're bouncing all over, but there's a scene at the very end when the colonel comes in and chews out Major Powers. And basically
Yeah.
says, "You're a walking clusterfuck of an infantry officer. Basically you're dismissed." And
Right.
and Moses Gunn's or Staff Sergeant Webster's reaction to Chuzu and Tom Highway and what all just happened is classic because he hitched his horse to Major Powers.
Yeah.
And they
Mm.
just took that horse out the pasture and shot it because his leg was broken. Like, and he's like, "Shit, now what do I do?" I mean, the look on his face. He doesn't say anything. It's just the look on his face is like, "Well, I guess I got to go follow the guy I chose to back, even though he's not clearly the right guy."
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
just walks out, and it's just such a good little moment. And it's not even a moment. It's not even like it's more about Clint Eastwood and Sergeant Major Chuzu and all that good stuff. But it's just such a great little scene.
Yeah, somebody's over here calling my name. I think I'll go find out who it was.
Yeah, exactly. Pete, that got me thinking. There was one other scene, which actually before the pit fight too, and of course after what I just mentioned. There's a scene of you. It's just you and Clint Eastwood in the helicopter when you're about to jump out of the helicopter in order to begin the whatever exercise this is.
Mhm.
That gets us to the pit. We find out that Swede has a weakness. This is his kryptonite. He's scared of heights.
Yes.
Now it goes over 2 minutes, 83, 84, but it's just a funny little quick scene. Well, we learn a little bit about your character, but also Clint Eastwood's character too. He's also scared of heights. At this point, he seems invincible. There's a funny bit that you say when he's like, "You are," like just the way the shock that you convey when Clint Eastwood admits that, yeah, he's not happy about jumping out of this plane either, or this. It's a quick scene, but it's a funny little bit of levity, I guess, and again, it's a little character because the look on your face again when I mentioned this, like you were shocked at Tom Highway being scared, but also when he's like, "Come on, let's get and so let's enjoy the view," basically, and
Mhm.
and you gingerly walk. You still are conveying that fear as you're like shuffling to the door, and it's a good little bit. Do you have any memories of filming that particular scene? Obviously, you didn't jump out of the plane, but or the
Right.
copter, but
Right. So, the cutaway was the guys jumping out and landing in water. That was done by the second unit group and using the real recon guys, and that was cool scene. And so how we shot the scene, very pragmatically, no sense flying around if you don't really need to. So the helicopter's on the ground, and there's crew members on both sides of the helicopter, and they're shaking it to give us some semblance of vibration inside, as if we're really flying. And of course, quiet, except for guys shaking it a little bit. So, and all that helicopter sound and noise and everything, because helicopters noisiest thing in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All that gets edited in later. So it's just, yeah, you just have to picture for a second that it's quiet. There's guys shaking the hell out of the helicopter, and you're standing there with Clint just trying to deliver a line, and hopefully it's not only the line but the body language and everything feels authentic. That's all. I don't know. That's all I think as an actor, that I really what I'm trying to do is to speak truthfully. And I really don't like heights myself, so it wasn't too hard for me to sort of conjure up like this would suck. This doesn't feel cool to jump out of this. But yeah. So we're shooting it on the ground. It was quiet, and just had a bunch of guys shaking the helicopter. And we did. I think we did 2 takes, and that was moving on. That was that.
well, yeah, it came off well on screen, and yeah, if you get it right the first time or two, why keep going?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
keep going for it? And maybe the fact that they were shaking it maybe explains why you were walking so gingerly. It might have been a little, so it was authentic. It worked good. And they did a good job of either finding somebody that kind of like when they cut obviously to the recon marine jumping out. That's supposed to be you. Like I didn't go, oh, that's clearly a cut. That's clearly look at that doesn't even look like him. They did a good enough job. Like I used to watch Jag, and they would cut to like real footage or this really bad CGI. And even though I love that show, I'd be like, "Wow, where did they film this in their bathtub? Like it looks terrible." It seemed natural that it was like Swede walked up and Swede jumped out, and he never questioned it. And of course, later in that minute, you see on the ground, you get a shot of you taking off your helmet, putting on the jungle hat, jungle cover, and then actually wrapping up the parachute. I imagine that had to be kind of a pain.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, no, it was great to get. I got a quick lesson on the proper way to gather up that parachute. Obviously, it's not something I've ever done, and got a quick lesson on that from one of the recon guys that were so helpful, I should say. Yeah, and then let's do it. Let's shoot the scene. That was that.
Oh, very cool.
I've actually, through doing this podcast, through just various social medias, and actually, a couple guys I've actually got to chat with on some of your posts, Pete. I kind of was interacting. They were there at the time of shooting. Either they were, I found a guy that was in the rappelling scene, and he was one of the. He said they got paid $60 to go rappel for the day. you know,
Oh,
he's like 60 American dollars. He goes, and you can see me. He's like I'm on the right, and so I thought that was neat. And I talked to a guy that was he was on duty during the time where you guys were staged when they were doing the emergency preparedness drill and everybody was staged on the flight line. You guys were on a bunch of bleachers, I think. He
yeah.
said he walked in. He was on duty. He wasn't actually part of the filming, but he was making his rounds and he kind of made sure he got on camera.
Uh,
And so it's pretty neat, kind of trying to interact with some of the. I mean, it's great to get the filming perspective side of it, but I'm always curious of like how did these Marines get involved? And every once in a while, I find somebody that was there, and sometimes they were just said, sometimes they were told, "Hey, you're going to repel today, but you got paid to do it." And or this guy, he was like, "Hey, I just kind of made sure I went and visited my friend while they were filming." So it was
yeah,
kind of neat, yeah.
that is clever. I like the stories. People reach out to me from time to time through social media, and they'll say, "Yeah, I was at Camp Pendleton during that time. Or I remember watching you guys filming one afternoon." So stories. It's all about the stories.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, that's what Bill Murray said in Stripes too. It's like we're always going to lose the girl to guys like them because of the stories. It's the stories, man. uh, Perry, do you have much else? Any questions for Pete that we haven't kind of hit yet?
Nah, man.
I got one, but you got anything you want to hit?
Nah, man. It's been great having you back, and I'm fascinated just listening to the stories.
Yeah, there you go. This is stories, man.
So yeah, it's been really cool. Really appreciate you coming back. I know you're probably busy with doing other things and taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. It's been great.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's fun to reminisce about this film with guys that really appreciate it. It's nice. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
I think Perry said it best, but yeah, I just want to thank you too. Before we go though, I do have one quick question. You may know the answer to it, you may not. It's totally fine. We've been going back and forth in this movie, and we've had other guests on and who are Marines as well, and we were trying to figure out Lieutenant Ring, played by Boyd Gaines. Do you know if he had silver bars or gold bars on? Do you have any recollection?
Oh,
And it's fine if you don't, because
oh. Well, I don't remember, like, I don't see the color, but I remember the story. So what would be, is it the butter bars that are the entry level?
Yep.
yes,
Is that
the gold.
right?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah,
I think that's where he was at. This was his very first assignment, just being a college guy, right? He comes straight
yeah,
out as an officer, and
yeah.
this was the first stop for him. That's my recollection.
Okay, that makes the most sense based
Yep.
on the way they portray him. We've debated back and forth because there's no clear. Literally in the same scene, it'll appear gold, and other times it'll appear silver, just depending on the
Ah,
lighting.
that's funny.
Yeah, and sometimes it'll be like the left one is gold and the right one is silver, and we're like, great, we can't. There's no literature to say it. Like let's say for IMDb, it's not First Lieutenant Ring, it's Lieutenant Ring. So we have to
I
kind of
see.
speculate. But the
Yeah.
way the way they play him, he's a boot ass lieutenant, and that makes sense that he's a butter bars, and it's official, everybody.
Ah,
We're gonna go with Pete. He's a butter bars, and
Yeah.
from now on, he's a second lieutenant butter bars. Boot
Yeah.
ass. Because it
Buddha's
makes
lieutenant.
oh,
yeah.
here's one of my Boyd Gaines stories. for you to finish, because he's wonderful. He's a award-winning stage actor. We were like, what? Look at this guy. He was already a big shot on Broadway when he came and joined, our crew for Heartbreak Ridge. The glasses he wore that was his idea, and that was perfect. When he got the script and he knew he was going to make the movie, and he just was envisioning his character. And these are the details that would be so great. He just did his homework and found sort of the standard issue, every AJ squared away version of glasses that you would have in the Army. Bought a few pairs, and then showed up with them, threw them on, and he said to Clint, I was thinking about going with this look, and he said, love it. And it was off, and it was
Oh,
perfect.
yeah, that is perfect. Thanks for sharing that, because we just assumed it was just wardrobe. Like, they look authentic as the birth control glasses that they give us in, similar to boot camp. So,
Yeah. Only
so
this
that,
also kind of sell the innocent, like schoolboy kind of look. It's something simple and you wouldn't think about it. I mean, it's just a pair of glasses, but in the context of the character, it kind of sells it.
Agree, it does. It's so good. I remember all the actors trying to find. What's a unique thing is camo makeup, right?
Oh, yeah, the real stuff.
Yeah, that greasy stuff, and
yeah.
Yep.
and there was a scene where we all were wearing it. They said, just put it on the way you see fit. I don't know, because we didn't have any instruction. But anytime you have a chance to kind of separate the way your character looks or moves or sounds, to distinguish if you think it's if it's truthful to that character, and or the way you wear your, what do they call it, a brush cover, you can stylize that just a little bit, you know. And everyone was looking to do that. I thought it was great. I mean, the military by its definition is going to make everybody like the same, the haircut and no facial hair and all these things that put everyone on the same level, except rank being a different issue. But then within that, I felt like it was fun to kind of find ways that you could, that's what actors are always looking to do, to separate the way your character, add characteristics, personalize the way that character does things to your truthful vision of how that's how that person would go through life.
Yeah.
It helps everybody stand out just a little bit, and like you said, because everybody's in green, everybody's wearing the same thing in this movie in particular. So it is neat to have little things to distinguish everybody. But yeah, we appreciate you sharing that story about Boy Gaines. That's awesome.
Yeah, got it.
I really don't have anything else. So as far as the podcast is concerned, I want to thank Pete for coming back and talking with us. Joining Perry and I, talking some more Heartbreak Ridge. We can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to come in and discuss this with us. Pete, is there any plugs or anything, anything you want to mention as far as where people can find you, where anything you want to endorse as far as anything you got going on or upcoming or promote? Please feel free.
Yeah, so no, I'm available. I love to connect with my fans. Facebook, I'm pretty full. I think I'm at my limit of friends there, but Instagram is good, and also LinkedIn. I've got a great connection with folks out there, and it's just Pete Koch, PeteKoch, and yeah, just follow along, and I love to connect with fans of Heartbreak Ridge and military folks. I love this country, and we couldn't be as great a nation as we are without the military. So a strong military at that. So thank you for your service.
Well, thanks, Pete. Really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on again. Thanks for I'll just recommend everybody follow Pete on social media. We do that. I do that, and he's a good follow.